think their social media profile is something that is just for them and their handful of heaven. They forget that it is public. And if they do apply for anything, people see all the things they've done and said and liked and not liked.
Yep. So those are all really small things that I think a kid on the continent thinking, I want to be able to work, I want to do blah, 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 has to be really mindful of. How you communicate with people. Like if you put in an application and you don't even bother to understand what the role is, what you're bringing to the table. Like I find one of the things I like to say to people when they apply for a job, and I've only been advertising in Zimbabwe for obvious reasons. That is the market I understand. That is the market I know. And I usually ask this question and they're always shocked. I always say to them, why did you apply for this role? Why do you want to do this? And I say, don't give me the money talk because I know you want money. Unemployment is 95%. I already know you want money, but why are you doing this? And people are always taken aback because they never realize that they need to think a little bit more about why they want to do something, because that is actually what's going to sustain them.
Yeah.
The reason I never gave up, I told you I was fired 3 times. I told you about the first one.
We got to the first one.
I told you about the first one. The second one, again, it was another protest. I was working for a firm that I felt didn't value the fact that some of the people who worked there were parents and had other responsibilities. And the expectation was you walked in at 6, left at 10 p.m. And I just was like, no, this is not sustainable. I have a kid and, I can't be expected to do these things. And again, if there was a work from home option, I probably would have taken that. But back then it wasn't there. And so I found myself with the, bye. And
yes.
I left that job.
Yeah.
And my third,
sorry, I was going to say, we all suffer that same. And even when you mentioned earlier, that's when you were 18 and you were doing this work with, I think it was ENY?
ENY, yeah.
And you mentioned 56 hours a week now. And you said for a kid, that's a lot. For anyone, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Day. And a lot of us have the expectation, and I've been in the same position. And I also have had work where I've left or for the same reason, where it is not sustainable for us to do 50-60-hour work. You go into bed at 2 a.m. and then you're expected to be up at 6 a.m. back, do all the things you need to do, work, and that cycle, your physical body cannot cope especially when you have family.
Yes, but with my second job, to be honest, it was fund accounting. I like to tell people the work is easy. There's no reason for someone to be putting in 50-60 hours. What was the issue was that managers would always come in late. So if you had something that needed to be reviewed, you had to wait later. It wasn't because you were not being productive. Like your 8 hours were enough. And so they fired me. But it's funny because after they fired me, I heard from people that stayed that they instituted if you need to work overtime, somebody needs to approve. Because they realized it was silly. It was inefficient. People were just being unnecessarily inefficient. And for a business, that's actually not good because you have burnout that you don't need to have. And then you end up with turnover. Hiring is very expensive. Retaining people is very expensive. So they did actually make the changes that I'd been advocating for, except they didn't like to hear it from me. My third firing was the worst. I was already a director at KPMG. I was on the largest account. It was the 5th largest account in the firm. And I thought I was flying. I mean, I knew I wasn't flying high. Let me just correct that. I didn't think I was flying. I wasn't under any illusions. The job wasn't what I thought it was going to be. When I walked into the job, I'd gotten the impression that I was a chief of staff, but it was all staff and no chief. So, I spent a lot of time making tea for people, picking up lunches, Yes, and I was called the director.
What?
So, of course, I sucked at that. I wasn't good at picking up lunches. I never got the orders right. Nothing went right. And so one day, my boss called me in, and she said, "I'm sorry, you're interesting, but that's it." That's it. That's what she said to me.
So they hired you as a director, and that happens with all of us. You're hired for one thing, and they try to slide in everything else. And knowing ourselves, we know we're not good at ordering lunches, or one went for an interview, and he was to be again a director of risk, and they said, "Oh, but you may have to book the flight." And I was that seems complex. Because you need to get up a number. So I'm sitting there thinking everything else was fine. They'd offered me the job, and they just wanted to go through certain things, and they were trying to now slide in all these things.
Actually, that last firing was my blessing. I can laugh about it. I wasn't laughing at the time because I really thought I could work my way through the lunch delivering until they realized I'm really not for delivering lunch. I thought I could get there, but I failed. And so that was the blessing. And the reason I say that was the blessing is the boss that was responsible for my boss. And this is crucial. I want everyone to listen to this because this is not the first time that I had to do this. When my boss told me I was just interesting. I was like, it was literally like she was telling me I'm as dumb as a brick. So you have to understand how that can, really damage your soul. And you have to remember, I came from a lot of people doubting me, but I was used to people doubting me. So this didn't really yes, I was disappointed that I'd failed, but it didn't really break me. I remember coming home, and when I told my husband, he was happy actually. Because when I took the job, he didn't like it. He said, "I don't even understand this job. What are you doing exactly?" But being the supportive husband, he didn't try to discourage me. Because yes, he could see the holes. I was blinded by my own ambition. First largest account within KPMG. I was going to have so much visibility. I was going to be able to do 1, 2, 3 things. And I hadn't even applied for this job. I was recruited into the job by another partner who said, "She's the girl you need for this role." So I didn't go looking for it. So I was convinced this is my calling. This is my thing. I was going to do all these amazing things. So when I got fired and got home, my husband didn't even flinch. He just was like, "Oh, okay," and let me deal with my issues. Then I remember making a silent prayer. I just said, "I hope I get 4 months." I actually remember saying, "I hope I get 120 days. That's all I needed." I was like, I need 120 days. It's going to help me figure out what to do next. I hadn't realized that was when I was going to start my business.
Right.
But I said, I need 120 days. Don't ask me where I got that number, but in my head, I was just like, I need 4 months. But the other crucial thing that I said I need 4 months was because 4 months was going to fall into January. And that was going to give me enough time to contribute all of the money that I wanted to contribute into my retirement account. Something in the nest egg.
But even there is something that a lot of people don't think about. And maybe a different separate time, we talk about pensions and retirement planning, because across the diaspora, and even when you listen to some of the statistics, especially in the US per se, just how the financial plan, I'm sure that's not alone, how we plan financially, especially being women, come into play. But carry on.
Yeah, so I prayed for 4 months. Then when I got into the office the following week to talk to my boss's boss, he was a British guy, actually, really nice. And he said to me, "Linda, we're going to give you 4 months. But in those 4 months, you're going to hand in your laptop. You're going to put in your timesheet for the rest of the 4 months as admin. You're going to put in your laptop. If you want to keep the laptop, you can, because this is going to help you look for a job. But we're going to take off all of your access to everything KPMG so that you can focus on your job search, whatever you need to do, but you have 4 months fully paid, fully accruing your vacation time." I wanted to kiss that man.
It's like God handing it to you.
Literally handed me exactly what I asked for. Then when I got home, I said to my husband, oh, because he's in the same sort of ecosystem. I said, help me find a job, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, no, I'm not helping you find a job. You need to start your own business. I was like, me? Doing what? Doing what exactly? And he said, no. Have you noticed how with a lot of the times that you've left jobs, and I was very restless. I moved jobs a lot. If you looked at my LinkedIn, I moved jobs a lot. He's like, every time you move, clients actually come looking for you. So the fact that you're being fired, to me, there's a disconnect between how your clients feel about you and how your employers feel about you. You must be doing something right. And then he said, well, number two, you've already been technically running your own business. When you were working for the accounting firm, you had clients that you had to manage, 15 to 20 clients probably. You were doing the billing, you were doing the contract negotiation, client service, you were hiring the teams that service those same clients. So I don't understand what you mean by how do I run a business? Because you've already been doing it. So basically my husband didn't give me a choice. He just was like, nope, if you're going to be looking for a job, count me out. I'm not going to be part of your search team. But if you're going to start a business, I'm in. So again, that whole idea behind the fund admin, offshoring, kicked into high gear. Because he was like, look, I see a lot of these funds. I'll help you get clients if you start. I've got this. I've got this. And I believed him. And so, yeah, we worked as a team in the early couple months. It was him and I. But I also had to work for people to believe it was my business. Nowhere in the material was his name, but because people in the industry know us, there was a very skeptical crew out there that actually thought, I'm just being the face, but my husband is really the business. But I'm like, he has a full-time job. He can't possibly do two things at the same time. So again, I found myself needing to prove that I am actually my own woman, despite the fact that, yes, my husband obviously supported me. He understood what I was doing. He understood how to be supportive, but he was nowhere near the front. He was just like, this is your thing. I know you can do it. So my first two clients, one of them came from him and another one came from somebody that I had worked with before. And again, to be honest with you, it's all very much social media driven. Because once I started, I put it out on social media, people were talking about it. People were like, oh, Linda started her own business and she's doing blah, 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 and yada, yada, yada. And so I went to lunches with people and like, yeah, sure, we'll support you. And I had no idea that I had this much goodwill from people I'd previously worked with, people I knew from social circles, people who knew me, even through just my social media presence. So that I would say is the story of how I got started. But if you need me to elaborate, this is a whole day's conversation with a lot of tea.
There's so much information you've crammed into this time.
The other service line, you talked about training folks and getting people ready for the 21st century. There's so many service lines that can be done offshore. Administrative work, web design, IT, all of those things can be done offshore. And those are areas that I would love. When I have established and I'm settled, I want to sort of expand those. So I have an admin assistant right now who's based in Zim. And in my mind, I'm like, why can't I have 10 admin assistants that we outsource and we hire out to our clients? Because our clients need exactly the same service I need. Bookkeeping, for example, our clients need the same bookkeeping that my personal bookkeeper does to me. And these are high net worth individuals. So there's so many service lines from what I'm doing that I can see as opportunities. But again, Africa, I feel, has some ways to go before we're ready. So before I go, that's one thing I wanted to say, that there are a lot of opportunities in terms of, and the labor is a tenth of what the labor costs are here.
Not everyone's going to have the patience or the skill to hire someone and then train them.
Yes.
So who might be able to provide is to actually do that recruitment and grooming and get people ready so that employers can come through and say, hey, through NS or Fife Avenue Partners and say, we're on this. So you may want to add in terms of like philanthropy or anything else?
Oh man, I'm doing so many things, but for now, I want to talk about Fife Avenue Partners because I think for me, it's part philanthropy, part business. It's everything in one, and everything I will do, I think is going to springboard from this platform. So my LinkedIn, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter, both under my personal handle and my professional handle. Of course, you have to separate those two. I'm also, you can also email me, Linda, at fifeavenuepartners.vc. And Fife is spelled F-I-F-E, not F-I-V-E. It's actually a street in the capital city in Zimbabwe. It's spelled F-I-F-E. And so, yeah, you can email me. If you send me a LinkedIn message like you did, I do respond. I'm a social media junkie. I do respond. If you tweet me or Facebook me, I do respond. So happy to help in any way that I can.
No, I'm very thankful. I'll put all your contact details there, so whoever wants to see, and definitely would be in touch. But thank you so much, Linda.
No problem. Thanks, Jasmina.
Your story and your journey is so inspired, so inspired. I feel so enthusiastic, and I am excited, and I'm honored and impressed by how much you've done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I look forward to collaborating and hopefully doing something meaningful for the continent. It's about time, girl.